I will walk you quickly through my entire workflow. I will show you how my layers are set up. To be honest, this is for demonstration, so obviously I retouched this image for the demonstration purposes, and I try to keep everything neat and clean, but when I do it on my own, it can get messy. So, but I always try to follow these steps. The first thing that I do, actually, before I get into it, I want to show you. She's just a girl. I knew from the start that this was just an image for her family, for her boyfriend, probably. It wasn't going to be printed in the big, on a big canvas. It was probably just going to end up on Facebook, and that's fine. A lot of clients want just that. So this is what I gave her, and this is what I had when the image before I got to retouching. So hold on, I'll show you one more time. So this is what I gave her. This is what I had to start with. As you can see, I didn't do any liquefying there, which, like I said, if I don't absolutely have to, I tried not to. And the first step was, like I said, cleanup and the frequency separation. I'll get in here and turn off the frequency separation. So the cleanup was just removing, you know, that hair that sticks out a little bit too distracting, and then just a little bit of hair, backlit hair on the chin there, like that, just that. I didn't even bother working on this because she wouldn't notice. Why would I even bother trying to change the nature? And then there was some backlit hair here on the arm and here too. But I didn't want to deal with that with just clone stamp tool or a healing brush because they're just a little bit bigger than the small one. The small tool the results would probably be a little bit too clumsy. So I left it for the frequency separation step. With the frequency separation step, I'm going to walk you through my layers again, but then I will open the same image and show you how I set up the layers, okay? Just to kind of show you what I was going for and how I did it. So within the frequency separation folder, I have the high frequency layer texture that contains texture, and I have low frequency layer that contains all colors and tones. Between them, I have a whole bunch of layers. One was specifically for the arm because I realized that I brightened the shadow a little bit, and the other one was for the face and that arm as well. So within this folder, if we get in here, we'll zoom in a little bit closer onto the face. The very first layer, and it's just an empty layer, this is where I did most of the work and removed those shadows that are not very flattering just because it's more side lighting. So I worked on those first, and then just a little bit of under eye. This can be actually even merged. So mainly that, and I use both the soft healing brush or just a brush, depending on how much good color I have to sample from, because with the healing brush sometimes it's difficult to actually sample the correct color and apply it within the little area like what we have here. So I can just simply use a healing brush on a very low flow and sample from the good color and apply it over the shadow or highlight. And the idea here is to imagine, we're artists, we must be able to imagine what it would look like if that shadow wasn't there. So what I did was, this highlight and then shadow and highlight again, they are, see how we've got this highlight, we've got that highlight and then shadow and then highlight again. If I even out the values of those areas, it will look like it wasn't even there, which is exactly what happened. And then same in all other areas. So it's just evening out the values and colors as well as values and kind of making it look like there was no bump or there was no skin fold or anything like that, to make that go away visually. And with the frequency separation, I will explain that approach. The very important part of understanding how frequency separation works is that in digital photography, the entire idea is to separate image into frequencies, and there can be as many frequencies as you want, but we typically do two: high frequency, which is texture, and low frequency, which is the tones and colors. And it's very, very important to understand how much texture you want to take to up to that level or to that layer where the texture is sitting. Because once you've taken too much texture, along with other larger problems on the texture, then you can only affect those large tones and colors that are left underneath. So you don't have much to, you're not able to fix a lot underneath that. If you've taken just a little bit of texture onto that layer, then, you know, if it's not enough, then whatever you do underneath that texture layer, then you might as well just not even go there. You could just do it without going into the whole frequency separation technique. And by choosing the correct radius of the high pass filter and blurring the bottom layer, that's how you, they're equal numbers. So by choosing that radius, you actually tell Photoshop, okay, I want this much texture to be taken to that top layer, high frequency layer, and then this much blurring will be left underneath, and I will work in between. So I will preserve that texture, but I will be able to even out the problems that are underneath there. And every image is so unique, and you know, the distance between the camera and the subject, how good the texture is to start with, the makeup and everything is so different that radius should be always different. Not only on the face, even if you're working on the other parts of the image, it's always different. And the main idea, if you want to use this technique, the main idea is to understand what pixel radius to choose for high pass and for blurring. And I will show you again a couple of different approaches, but the best thing that you can do for yourself is take one image and try to fix one same problem with a few different radiuses. Just apply 2 large, select 10, then select 5, then select 3, and then try and see how it works. Once you understand that, what you actually create when you choose different radiuses for your frequency separation layers, then you will understand, and the more you do it, the easier it will become. That's the whole idea. That's the main thing about the frequency separation. And again, keep it subtle. Keep it very, like the smaller the changes that you do, the better. Even though these folds that I've fixed here, even though they seem large on her face, but if we zoom out, her face alone is only like 20% of the canvas. So that's not too much, you know, and like I said, it's not going to be printed on a huge canvas, so I can't afford going in and, you know, fixing a little bit larger areas with the frequency separation. Okay, so, and after that was done, after I've worked on the layers between the high frequency and the low frequency, I also noticed that the area that I fixed here, right here, it was a little bit too soft. See, right here. So what I did was I just selected a little bit of this softer texture, and while standing on the high frequency, I just went Command J to take that part onto a different layer, and then just adjusted the opacity. So that texture is now sitting on top of it. I adjust the opacity so I can see it, but it's not overpowering, and you know, I don't have to graft it from other areas because it's already there. So it's just as simple as that. Same story on this side, this part. I go back, I select it, Command J, it's there, and then I take it back to the point that it's kind of there, but not too much. And then the opposite also may happen, like here on her nose, I just thought that it's a little bit too much texture for it. It doesn't need to be there. It's just, it's not flattering on her. So what I did was I actually selected the texture that I thought was a little bit too prominent, did the same thing, took it on a different layer, only then I inverted it, which blurred it out, and then adjusted the opacity again to the point that it's just not as strong anymore. Okay, and again, adjusting the opacity will be like one of the main steps. And once you've done all of those things with the frequency separation applied here and there, I remind myself all the time, and it's very, very important, make sure to flip through, toggle the visibility, because this is when you will actually see if you've done something wrong. If you don't do that, you will not even notice until after the fact, and you may end up with something that the face will not look where you started. Okay, so it's just such a simple thing, but I forget sometimes and I regret it. So I just want to bring it up that you really need to toggle through the visibility of the layers for any change that you're applying on the image. So I'm going to delete, no, I'm actually going to save the same file in class, and I will delete all of these layers, and I will show you how to set up the frequency separation. I don't want to spend much time because, again, on that URL you will find a whole big article that I wrote on F-stoppers about how it's set up, and there are different ways to set it up. I will just show you how I do it and how I decide what pixel radius to select. Okay, so it starts with just duplicating a couple of layers, same layers, and I take them into a folder. Call it frequency separation. And the top will be our high frequency, which is the texture. I will just have to decide how much texture I want on that layer. And it will always be different